Marcus Flowers here, co-CEO and co-creative director of 26 and Glencoe Media. Here we have a new podcast called the Fantastic Flow Podcast. This podcast is dedicated to all things Fantastic Four, from the current comic book series, the long storied history of the first family of Marvel, and other mediums that the first family are in, and basically everything in between. As many of you may or may not have known, Reed Richards, Susan Storm, Franklin Richards, and Valerie Richards left Earth after Secret Wars concluded to basically play the role of God in the recreation of the Marvel multiverse after it was destroyed in the creation or rebirth or something like that of Battleworld. And Battleworld was created by none other than Doctor Doom. However, the Marvel comic book scene just isn't the same without the first family of comics gone, and they were finally brought home, well, kind of, with the release of Fantastic Four by Dan Slott with help by Sarah Pichelli. The amazing thing about this issue of Fantastic Four is that it is two main stories and a humor role, all compiled into an amazing 44 pages. With the writers being Slott and Pichelli, Pichelli even works overtime alongside Elizabeth D'Amico with inks, and Marte Garcia is the color artist. The first story, entitled Signal in the Sky, begins with Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm still reeling from being left behind or their comrades being dead. Because at the end of Secret War, Reed, Sue, Valerie, and Franklin all promised that they would be back, but little over a year or 2 years later, they are still not back. And Johnny, rightfully so, is still angry and bitter, while Grimm tries to move on with his life. Somehow, someway, a Fantastic Four signal gun was stolen from the Baxter building by two delinquents. They accidentally shoot the gun in the air, and the Magic Four appears in the sky, causing a stir around the city, and having Johnny and Grimm go to the scene of the crime. They both believe in their hearts that Sue and Reed are still alive, but upon arrival, they realize it was a prank, and that was that. And I really wanted to talk about this just because the reaction that Johnny had compared to Grimm is very on brand for Johnny, and it just shows the difference in where their grieving process is, because Grimm has accepted the fact that his friends may be gone forever, while Johnny still has hope that Reed, Sue, Valerie, and Franklin are still alive. And it seems that Ben has reached this clarity, but however, Johnny just hasn't got there yet because he's still stubborn to the point where he knows that they're still alive, which is very interesting thing. Just because you would think it would be Johnny moving along, with Grimm being the sad one, just because Grimm and Richard were close. They went to school together, and he's known Richard, and he's known Reed and Sue basically his whole life. Well, same thing for Johnny, but I think that's just an interesting contrast, and I like the way that Slott and Pichelli explore this dynamic relationship. All right, now moving on. So after the whole fake gun theory thing, Ben Grimm decides that why wait for something to happen that may never happen again, and he finally proposes to his longtime girlfriend Betty. And I feel like this was important just because Betty has been Ben Grimm's ride or die forever, and so and they're both incapacitated to some point. You know, since Ben Grimm is the thing, he can't really be physical with Betty, while Betty is blind, so she can't really see Ben. She just sees Ben for all. I don't want to say she can't really see Ben because they do have I don't want to say she can see Ben, but just not physically. She sees him for the person that he is. And so after once Ben Grimm decides to marry Betty, he announces the announcement to Johnny. He asks Johnny to be his best man, and Johnny says no because he says I shouldn't. I'll read it. He says, "There's only one person in the whole world who should be the best man at Benjamin J. Graham's wedding, and that's Reed Richards." And Ben responds, "You ungrateful little, this was a beautiful freaking moment for us, and you just went and ruined it. I'm gonna..." And the two get into an argument, and of course, in typical Johnny fashion, he just runs off. Whoa, that actually was my mistake, because before the argument, it goes to it. Before Ben Graham decides to propose to Betty, it goes to a flashback of a time when the Fantastic Four, including Richard and Valerie, were stuck in the outers of outer space, and it's the Fantastic Four working with the alien trying to get back home, and the four realize that the only way to get back home is for Johnny to sing, and he does, and it was Reed Richards' intelligence and Sue Storm's problem solving that helped them get back home, and so it just proved the value and loyalty of the entire crew as a whole, and it also goes back to just saying how the Fantastic Four work amazing as a whole family. But okay, so that was just me messing up, and so now we're back, and Johnny storms off from Ben, and he's yelling to the skies like, "Reed, come back! How could you do this to us? You said you'd be back." And when he gets the realization that Reed and Sue and Valerie and Franklin may never be back, he slowly descends back down to the ground with tears in his eye. And the thing, Ben Graham, rightfully so, realizes that his friend is still in mourning. And Ben, Betty, and Johnny all embrace. But reverse. We next go to somewhere in outer space or somewhere in the multiverse, and it's Reed and Sue Storm talking, and there's a pan to a bright light with Johnny, Ben, and Betty all embracing, and we have other Marvel heroes such as Medusa, Luke Cage, and it ends with the large Fantastic Four, not just in the sky of New York, but in the sky of the world. So they're back. Well, they're not officially back, but they're close to being back. And now the second story is all about Doctor Doom, and a little bit about Doctor Doom. He was a good guy for a second. If you read I forgot the name of the Iron Man, but it was an Iron Man tale, and it was basically Doctor Doom in an old Iron Man costume, and it's called Our Day of Doom and Victory, and it's by Dan Slott and Simone Bianchi, with colors by Simone Bianchi and Marco Russo. And so in this story, it's basically Liberia, which has been overrun by basically gangs and stuff like that. And we have and we finally see Doom, whose face is messed up again, but he is found basically a broken man. And Doom is broken because not only did he fail as a villain, he also basically failed as a hero. Because when the time counted on him to most to stand up, he didn't. And so he's found by a lady by the name of Mora. And she inspires Doom to fight, not just to fight to get his honor back, but fight for the original reason why he wanted to be a conqueror in the first place, for Liberia. And so basically Doom takes back Liberia from all the intruders, basically. And I think this is going to be interesting just because we get Doom finally back where we want him. He's no longer, I don't want to say he's not good at playing God, but he's not good at playing God. I think Doom is better suited when he's on his quest for Godship instead of, because once he finally gets it, like throughout the history, he's been God multiple times. And so when he gets it, he's not as interesting as on his quest to get it. And I think this time with him realizing who he is, we'll get a good mixture of the science and of the dark arts mixed together, and we'll have an even deadlier type of villain that the Fantastic Four will face. And so finally, it's basically just a page with the alien saying, "I can't believe I waited this long for a Fantastic Four, but they're not even together yet," which I just thought was cool. I thought that was pretty chill. But yeah, I really enjoyed this first issue. Um, it it basically did everything. Like I really trust Dan Slott as a writer. He hasn't let me down yet. He did excellent with Spider-Man, handling that for over a decade. I think he'll be good with the Fantastic Four. And this was the first episode, Volume One, Episode One of the Fantastic Flow podcast. Make sure you are following me, One Marcus Flowers, on all social media handles. All social media platforms. Make sure you are following Metro Meta on Twitter at Metro Meta 2648. Make sure you are following us on Facebook at 26 and Glencoe Media. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at 26 and Glencoe. And follow us on Twitter at 26 and G. And I will see you in a few weeks. Until next time, peace. Oh wait, there actually is a Super Flow Bros podcast coming out this Tuesday, like always. So now, I will see you guys later. Peace.